Welcome back to Typical Labs. My name's Kai, and my name's Kai. Today, we're playing a game called Worms for the Sega Mega Drive, a European exclusive. It's a strategy game that released in 1995 that spawned a pretty successful franchise that's one of my favourites. Now, there is a lot of context to seep through with this game, and I kind of want to talk about the Mega Drive itself, as, spoiler alert, I own one, and I kind of wanted to flex on the viewers, but there is actual stuff to talk about, don't worry. Let us go back in time to the 90s and unleash my inner boomer. So let's quickly go over the Mega Drive, as I love it, and I want to talk about more games for the system. It was released in 1990 in Europe, and this is the quote-unquote improved model from later on in the system's life, which in this case is perfect for Worms, as the system's life started to slow down in 1995 with the sudden release of its successor, the Saturn. Anyway, it's a nicely designed console, even if the first model arguably looks better. They even thought ahead, as there is an expansion slot where you can put in a Mega CD if you were fucking minted.
Sega Mega Drive! Got one? Now you can get Mega CD!
Yeah, fuck off mate. It's a good console, but one bad thing is that my model comes with an RF cable as the main source of video input, which does some magicry with the antenna cable and channels. Sounds good, but trying to get it to work on any TV made in a year that has a 2 at the start of it is just not happening. Plus, even if it does work, it still looks like arse. There's SCART cables online, but I haven't looked into it. Huh, I wonder what that Sonic Polo shirt looks like. You know, I should mail this in. £20 for a Sonic Polo shirt alone is a win in my books. Well, maybe not, it's nearly 40 quid adjusted for inflation. Also, this power brick weighs a ton, and considering the console's age, I really don't trust it. Finally, here's the iconic controller, sporting a D-pad, 3 mushy but good buttons, and a start button. Simple, but effective, with an iconic design. The controller feels nice in the hand, and the D-pad feels comfy despite how weird it looks. The connector is weird, and it is virtually rammed into the socket. To quote the angry video game nerd,
it's like trying to stick your dick in a Cheerio.
Now, to its credit, the Mega Drive has some very good games for it. On screen right now are some of the best. Now, precisely 0 of you are asking in your head right now, Kai, how are you going to get footage from that thing? And if you were, shut up, you weren't. But good question. Well, I don't have a capture card, so the entire thing is out of the question. But even if I did, I still wouldn't, because I think this thing will kill me. I don't have any footage, but whenever it's plugged in, on or off, it makes a constant buzzing noise that is always audible. I'm afraid this thing's going to explode, probably due to the power brick, but looking for replacements, it's a wee bit out of my financial interests. For this, and any future Mega Drive reviews, or any console for that matter, I use RetroArch, which emulates various consoles fairly accurately, from the humble Atari 2600 up to the Wii, and everything in between, even various point-and-click adventure games like the Neverhood. It's a fucking pain in the ass to set up correctly, but if you pull through, you can have a nice retro gaming station on everything from Androids, iOS, Windows 95 through to 10, the Xbox One, if you shell out $20 for a developer license, the PSP, Wii U, 3DS, and oddly enough the PS2, if it's modded. Not sponsored, but feel free to give me money regardless. Back to the Mega Drive. For added authenticity when I was emulating it, I borrowed this Mega Drive Mini, which is also a nice bit of kit by the way, fantastic game selection and worth the money. Definitely want to talk about Earthworm Jim here. Wow, I'm getting sidetracked. The controllers feel nearly the same as the original, but have the benefit of having USB on the end, so they will work with PCs. In fact, RetroArch picks it up immediately and works perfectly. So yeah, all in all, nearly the same experience as the hardware, but with the benefit of me not dying in an electrical fire. Now, while still talking about context, let's shift focus to Worms itself. Worms was a game that started out on the Amiga. If you didn't know, it's a series of computers that were really advanced and ahead of their time, and managed to last from the mid-80s all the way to the mid-90s. People were blown away at a fucking bouncy ball in January 1984, 2 whole years before the iconic Luxo Jr. short film. The Amiga is pretty interesting, so don't be surprised if I cover more games from it. Back to Worms, it started out as an artillery game called Total Wormage, made in a programming competition for an Amiga magazine called Amiga Format. Despite being pretty good, Andy Davidson, the creator, got no luck when he sent the game to various publishers, so he went to the European Computer Trade Show. There, he was advised to speak to Ocean Software and Team 17. Ocean was a juggernaut games publisher in the late 80s and early 90s, and Team 17 were known for games on the Amiga such as Alien Breed and Super Frog. Team 17 offered to develop and publish the game, and started the franchise that Team 17 are only known for nowadays. When the game started receiving really bloody good review scores, except for Amiga Power magazine, who are notorious for panning Team 17's games to the point where it reached the courtroom, Ocean saw the financial opportunity, took it, and ported the game to fucking everything. Starting off on the Amiga, it reached the Amiga CD32, the Game Boy, Mac OS, the Mega Drive, MS-DOS, PlayStation 1, which doesn't work on the slim PS2 for some reason, the Super Nintendo in Europe, Sega Saturn, and even the fucking Atari Jaguar, oddly in 1998, 3 years after Worms had come out. Not only was this the last Jaguar game released, with Atari abandoning it 2 years earlier in 1996, but at this point Worms 2 had already been out for nearly 6 months. But wait, Ocean wasn't done yet. There were plans for a Sega 32X port, and even a sodding Virtual Boy port. The worst offender by far, however, was the teletext version. Yep, some bastards coded a functional port using TV subtitles. This is real. The game was archived, but unfortunately the original code was lost when the programmer accidentally spilled some fizzy drink over an Amiga 4000, instantly killing its hard drive. Now, the Mega Drive version of the game that I'm looking at is interesting, as it is by far the worst version. Well, excluding the Game Boy, but that's just firing cheap shots. But just because it is the worst of something doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. The versions of the game on CD, so that's the CD32, PC, Saturn, and PS1, had fancy features such as CD music and really charming cutscenes that played at the start-up and in between rounds. Here's an example of one. Now, as I said previously, out of all of the consoles that the game was ported to, the Mega Drive version was the weakest. But to what extent has the game been butchered? Let's find out. Sorry for talking for like 20 minutes straight. I like talking about the history and context of old games, if you somehow haven't noticed yet, but can we just appreciate this commercial for a second?
Now that I've got your attention, stop sniggering! I could stay here all night until I find out which one of you once did it!
Worms, the computer game.
Well, immediately upon starting the game, my ears are graced with a painfully compressed version of the game's theme song. It sounds pretty good, but it's only like 45 seconds long, and loops for the entire time whenever you aren't playing the game. Also, what kind of fucking tagline for your game is, Worms, how hard is yours? Huh? What? Whatever, we need to set up some teams. Teams consist of 4 worms which are individually named, and you can adjust whether they are played by humans or the AI, and up to 8 teams are stored. Pretty complex stuff for 1989 hardware. Let's make a review call on a team. Well, sorry Bogdanov, but your name is now Bogdanov. You might be asking who Daryl is. You'll see in a future episode. Well, hopefully a near future episode. Done. Now we need a team to go against. Well, I was enjoying San Andreas until Barry picked this game, so let's go against Grove Street. Now, to pick a game where there are 2 options, League or Friendly. League records stats for each game, Friendly does not. Sort of makes sense. However, there is something very stupid about this entire game. You see, the Mega Drive does not save games. There is no hard drive, no built-in memory. You could get around this by putting a battery in the cartridge that keeps the data alive, or you could use a password system. Worms uses neither. Upon powering off the console, all your team names and all stats recorded are wiped. So why bother? You better be playing this on an emulator with save states, or you're going to spend 20 minutes at the start of each play session entering worm names. Whatever, let's go. 1v1, Review Corner versus Grove Street. The game uses random map generation like Toe Jam and Earl, but a bit more simple. There's different themes that a map can have with their own objects, like the Arctic or space. Impressive for a 2 MB game. The manual even boasts that there's infinite possibilities. You may also notice there's something missing. Yep, music. There is absolutely no music in this game, but if I recall, no version of the game had music during the gameplay. Hey, I was editing the video and I was wrong. Well, let's fix that right now with some appropriate music. Much better. The game is turn-based, with the objective for one team of worms to outlive the rest using various weapons such as bazookas, grenades, cluster bombs, shotguns, Uzis, dynamite and bananas. In addition, there are tools such as the blowtorch that allow you to get through terrain. I forgot to mention that all terrain is destructible. If you have enough time, you could remove the entire map. Speaking of removing things, worms are either fragile beings and are killed upon coming in contact with water, being launched off screen, or just being shot at a lot. Upon death from the third way, they have a comical death animation where they blow themselves up. This can be hilarious as this explosion actually damages other nearby worms and can lead to catastrophic chain reactions if a worm dies near a group or a chain of worms that have low health. Now let's talk about AI. There's no difficulty setting back in the menu, so what you see is what you get. The AI is bloody weird. Sometimes it lands shots from across the map with pinpoint precision, leaving you screaming bullshit. Other times it literally commits suicide, jumps off a cliff to its death with no regrets. Unfortunately, Smoke does not look where he's going and jumps directly into the pit of water. Sweet has 7 HP and the... well, that's kind of... yeah, Smoke just committed suicide again. Mind you, I'm not much better. Fuck this up. I've just lost the game. I fucked it up. Right, Barry, you must land this cluster bomb. It is of the utmost importance. No, I've just killed myself. But at least I don't literally walk into the water, killing me instantly. Well, Ryder and Joseph are very lonely. They're going to duke out to the end, I see. Ryder is going to kill himself. He just walks straight in the water. Like, he didn't even jump, he just willingly jumped. He just walked into the water. Grenades are particularly satisfying weapons when used correctly, but this is one of the game's issues. Due to the small resolution and screen size, it's much harder to line up shots and throw. This issue still exists on the other versions, but is most notable here because of the microscopic resolution of 320 by 240, and that's including the stupid border here at the bottom. Well, this game is a lot of fun in general, but really shines with another person. This game is one of the few games on the Mega Drive to support the team player, and an adapter allowed 4 players to play. However, this is kind of pointless because due to the turn-based nature of the game, you can just pass the controller around the players. This is even encouraged in future Worms games. However, good luck telling which player is which due to all team colours looking practically identical. In conclusion, Worms is a lot of fun on the Mega Drive and is a faithful version to the Amiga and MS-DOS originals, even if quite a bit is lost along the way. I'd still recommend the PC version, as it's stupid cheap on Steam and will run on anything due to it using a DOS emulator, DOSBox. However, it seems like they truly cared about every single port of this game, so honestly I'd recommend any version. Okay, maybe not the Game Boy. Seeing as this is Barry's choice, let's see what he thought of it. Worms is a certified hood classic. You see, Kai, there's a reason why this game was ported to quite literally everything under the fucking sun, and that's because it's just a bloody good game. There's nothing quite like blowing up worms to smithereens with dynamite, thinking of your next move, which is probably pulling them off a cliff into the ocean, while laughing at the AI the entire time. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Well, aye, it's by far from perfect, with lining up the shots and the lack of music compared to the others. It's still pretty fucking good on the good old Mega Drive. Whenever there was a get-together in Glasgow, I'd always bring this game with me. For some reason, they'd always call me a porridge puncher and laugh at me. But whatever. Honestly, I'd give it a proper 9 Clive Lungs out of 10. What a banger of a game, honestly. Oh, I got nothing else to talk about for 10 seconds, so you can enjoy the fucking silence. A bit further this time. That was far, too far. Ooh, 2 direct pellets on Smoke there. Thank you for watching. I tried being a bit unique in this video with the retrospectives at the start, and I'd love to see your feedback so I could maybe make another retrospective for the next game. Oh, not this shit again. Oh, it's Daryl. Suppose he wants to talk to you lot about himself. Here we go. Yeah! Actually, on second thoughts, he can introduce himself when he's relevant. He'll be talking about the multiplayer components of games if they're optional or on the side. Now, if there's no phone interruptions, let's talk about the next episode. The retrospective on the Sega Mega Drive has put me in a Sega mood, so luckily the voting is back this time, but not for a specific game, but a specific console. I don't know what the game will be, but I'm feeling adventurous and I really enjoyed talking about obscure games like Parappa, and would really like to find another diamond in the rough, so to speak, so I'd be willing to try many different games. So, your choices are: 1. I talk about a game from the Sega Saturn, the direct sequel to the Mega Drive that started Sega's long road to death as a console manufacturer due to their own incompetence. I do not know any good games for the console, so this would be very interesting for the viewers. Who knows, I could be talking about a Japanese game, seeing as it was a popular system there. 2. I talk about a game from the Sega Dreamcast. It was a bloody good console and successor to the Saturn, but it was discontinued in just over a year. It was home to classics such as Sonic Adventure and Jet Set Radio, but I don't know many good or bad games, so this could again be interesting to you. 3. I talk about a game from either the Mega CD or Sega CD, which I mentioned earlier, or another add-on called the Sega 32X. They were both expensive add-on devices for the Mega Drive, but the Mega CD added a state-of-the-art disk drive, bumping up the maximum storage capacity from a 4MB on a lowly cartridge to a whopping 700MB. Now this is interesting because the whole selling point of the console was that full motion video or just video of in-games would be the future, and as a result it spawned a bunch of cheesy movie games that were definitely products of their time. For this reason, picking the Mega CD could be an interesting option, and the 32X has some interesting games which are rarely talked about nowadays. Personally, I want to talk about the Saturn as I literally know nothing about its game library. However, it's up to you what console, and from there I'll find a suitable game to discuss. Who knows, maybe I could talk about a couple of games for a shorter amount of time each. Make sure to vote below, and take care. One well-placed grenade, and smoke is history. That was not a well-placed grenade.